Hello, and thank you so very much for joining me. This is a continuation of a recent video I made this entitled, Do This Every Morning. I had so many wonderful comments, and thank you very much, by the way, and also questions as far as a little more clarity possibly on entry and exit and how to really perform this strategy. And a couple of the questions I had, because I mentioned at the end of that video that this strategy also works well in oil. So, and the questions were, well, how does that work in oil? So we are going to be looking at oil using that first 15-minute candle open strategy today. And in front of you here, you have this is the 1 hour chart on oil. And oil, I want to mention, actually opens 8 a.m. and this is Central Standard Time, and that's where I'm located. So it's open from 8, Globex still trades 23 out of 24 hours every day, and that's to include like the London market, the Australian market, the Toyota market, the Tokyo market. So Globex, right? But it used to be when we had the floor trading, which is very much minimalized now since we do have mostly everything is on the internet. There was the open outcry, and that happened between 8 a.m. and 1:30 p.m. and there were 9 o'clock to 2:30 in New York time. So that still is the highest volume time in trading for oil, and that's still the respected time. And you can see that on my chart, and even this is the 1 hour chart, but the volume indicator here on the bottom of my chart, you can see where the spikes, and that is at the 8 o'clock a.m. open. And again, when I say refer to 8 o'clock a.m., that is 9 o'clock New York time. Okay, so the reason I have this 1 hour chart in front of me here, I wanted you to include this when you're preparing for this strategy. You want to look at where the support and resistance areas could be if you get into a trade, where maybe your profit target should be, where your stop losses are, and such. So you want to be familiar with the higher time frame. And this is the 1 hour chart. You can also certainly and should be aware of the daily chart, but we know right now that oil had been consolidating. It was kind of on the lower side, and now the last few days it has increased due to some global kind of chaos or instability, I should say. So, but anyway, so when you prepare for this, you want to know where all of those lines are on your chart. So that's all these price lines that I have on my chart are indications of Globex highs and Globex low. Now we're going to dig deeper into the 15-minute chart and then the 5-minute chart on both October 1st and October 2nd. So we had a very up day, but then we also had a down day, so you can see the differences there. And the reason I have this mark here, the 924 Globex high, you'll see here over to the left. This is where on October 2nd, the highest it got to was in respect of the 924 Globex high. So that's why you have to know where your resistance lines are and your support. Okay, so let's continue. Let's dig into one of these. Okay, so this is the look, October 1st chart over here is a 15-minute chart, and then we have the 5-minute chart here. So the 15-minute chart, I marked off the Globex high and the Globex low, and those are marked here. You can see during the Globex hours, there was just a lot of continuation. There wasn't too much action, not until about 1:45 a.m., again, that Central Time. Now, the London market opens at 2 a.m. my time, Central Time. So there usually is a lot of price action that occurs on oil when their market opens. So you should be aware of the support and resistance zones that are created during London market times, because that's a very high volume time as well. So anyway, then we get to our first 15-minute candle open here, and this is marked. As you can see, I have the arrows here to show you that. It was a small range candle, but at that time of the open, let's say you're saying right now, well, that's great. In hindsight, you can see that that certainly did a huge bullish momentum away from that. But if you didn't have that yet, you don't know which direction it's going to go in, right? So it wasn't real strong momentum here. Certainly not to a bullish intention. We had a good movement here, a nice price pattern. It came down, kind of a down, up, and then now we have some correction, and we have impulse correction. Are we going to have an impulse and another correction, or is it going to keep going up, or is it going to keep going down? At that point, we don't know. But another I wanted to mention is that when you look left on this candle here, you can see there's a nice area of support, a support zone that you expect that there could be some buyers waiting in the wings here. Now, oftentimes on oil, it will go down to the Globex low. In this case, you can see it did not. It just hit this zone over here to the left, and then you had the momentum higher. Also, I want to note to you that often on oil, and one of those quirky little things that you will see is that they will oftentimes, if there's a shadow or a wick on that previous candle during that open, it will often go down and retest that as well. And that's a good indication too that you might have the momentum back up to the upside, because look at that long wick on this bullish candle here. So that's preparing. That's your 15-minute chart here. Now let's go over to our 5-minute candle chart and see where we're going to get on board for that trade. Now this is the range here of that first 15-minute candle. Here's our entry point, and the reason we have an entry point here, we finally had a close above that first 15-minute candle range. Okay, I would get in here at this candle here, right before that opened, or right about when that opened. Now at this point, I would still have to have my stop loss below the low of that first 15-minute candle, because it certainly could have come back in and tested that area before heading back up. And the reason, again, another reason why I would enter here, we had a close above the open, like I said. We also had a very strong relative strength index indication, and that I always have that on my chart. So that's another thing that I will certainly look at. So we get in here, and then we ride it. Now this is the 10-1 Globex high. Oftentimes it'll stop out at that Globex high. I would still be in that trade. I would certainly have moved my stop loss up because of the strong RSI. I would have moved it at least to a break-even point plus commissions, and then see what happened from there. Now it came back down, but then it tested that Globex high, and then it had the momentum still to keep going. At that point, our relative strength index, it was still strong. It was well over the 70 point. So I would have not gotten out of that trade. I've not gotten out of that trade until right here. I have an exit point here. Our RSI was then weak, went below that 70. Also, what I would be looking at, I don't have that on this chart, but I would also look at the volume. Lower volume would show we have a decrease certainly in the momentum, and I would have gotten out of here. Now you can see that it did certainly keep going, left some profits on the table, but I would be very pleased with the results of that trade, just because you don't see that typically. Like I said, that's not a typical move in oil that it would go so far up on the open, but so very, very pleased with the results. But that would be your indicator of getting out of the trade. Watch your RSI, watch your volume. And you got some bearish candles coming in. It's just losing traction, basically, right? So I would have just said, okay, I'm good. We are out of here. Now let's move on. We are going to then look at, this is the trade from October 2nd. And you can see quite a difference. We had a bearish momentum day on the 2nd. Again, all of my setups are very, very exact as far as marking the Globex high and the Globex low. Then again, when you come up to your chart, and this is right here, we have the 8 a.m. open. It was a bullish candle, and we did move extended above that. We did not have any 15-minute candle close above that. We just had long, strong wicks, but you can see the extension of the wick and it came back down. So that indicates there was definitely bearish momentum back down. It just hit the Globex high. It didn't even go over the Globex high. So right away, watching this part of it, you would say, okay, yeah, that certainly indicates to me that there is bearish momentum here. And then we had the strong wicks here, and then we finally went below our first 15-minute candle, and it continued here. Now let's move over to our 5-minute candle, and this is where I would enter. Now you would say, well, there wasn't a close of the 15-minute candle until here, but let me show you here what we will be looking at. We had an entry because of the volume. It's a very high volume at that point in the day, and the momentum to the downside. Our RSI was very weak, as you can see here. I should get rid of that for you. Very weak on the RSI. And there was no indication that that was going to be reversing. No divergence there. Now, this is the candle range here, the first 15-minute candle. But I never get in during that first 15-minute candle. Whether I be trading the indexes or oil on this strategy, if it's just moving within that first 15-minute candle range, I don't make something up to enter a trade. I wait until it meets my criteria. And if it's just trading in that range, I move on to a different market for that day. Now, many people would. They would get in and out of that trade very quickly, probably scalp that to the high and the low of the 15-minute candle. And certainly you're whatever you want to do there. I'm just sharing with you what I do. I'm probably a little bit more conservative, but that's the way I trade. So I've seen much of the downside, so I'm very conservative. But this I wanted to show you here as well on the 5-minute candle, and see if you can. But here to the left of that 15-minute candle range, we certainly had a lot of support here that it couldn't break out of, and it was a lot of so you'll know that there's a lot of both buyers and sellers in this range. So then when it gets to this point and you have a momentum to the downside, it kind of took care of all those bullish entries here. It was exhausted, basically. So that was another indication that we would have more trading and more momentum to the downside. Now, I certainly hope this has really helped you in kind of narrow down how I work in this strategy. And please comment. I truly appreciate it. And if you didn't see the first one of this video, it certainly is available to you if you want to click right here. But otherwise, feel free to, again, comment, ask any more questions. I certainly appreciate it. It lets me know what you are interested in and how I can help you, at least to hopefully answer your questions. So thank you so very much for taking your time with me today. Trade with traction, not distraction. Take good care. Oops. You know what I forgot to tell you on the October 2nd trading day? I failed to tell you where I would get out of this trade. I certainly apologize, and thank you for for your understanding. I told you how I would win and why I would get into this trade as far as my entry here, but I wanted to stress upon something here as far as the exit on this particular trade. The reason I exited where I did, now I mentioned to you earlier that oftentimes oil, it will test the Globex low of that day, and then it will bounce. Now in this case, certainly I was watching that Globex low zone, which is right here, but I still didn't feel that there was a strong momentum to exit the trade. I certainly would have been moving my stop loss up to a certainly good profit at this point, but I still didn't show any indication of losing the momentum to the downside until we got to this area here. And then there's a lot of hesitation down here on the RSI, as you can see that. And it went down to that 30 point mark on the RSI, and then it still faltered. I could see that certainly was coming. So on this candle here, it went below the Globex low, but then peaked. It went back up. It came back down, and I just wasn't going to trust it any further, as well as looking over back to our 15-minute chart here. I wanted to show this to you. You can see all of the consolidation here. Of course, at that point, we didn't know that was going to happen, but when you look left, there was a strong level of support, and I had told you that during the Globex hours, there are often some good zones that are created, particularly during during the London market hours, and so that's what I was watching for here, and it came. It was true. It certainly did do what I expected it to do. And like I said, that would have been your indication to definitely have exited that trade. It came back up later, and I don't know when that was, but, that's why I say, watch the bigger time frame chart, if the 15-minute or the hourly chart, see where those turnabouts may happen. And so I just wanted to get back in here and make sure I shared that, because that certainly was a question from you all. So thanks again. Take care.